I find absolute joy in seeing bad rich people suffer. Call me apathetic or evil, but if you're the kind of person who screw hundreds if not thousands of people for financial gains through unethical if not straight up illegal means, you deserve to have all of that cash be taken out of you by the time the peasants decide to rebel, and you're gonna have to learn how to live like the rest of everyone else. Unfortunately, my love towards capitalism is tainted by the fact that the people who engage in it are human beings. Puh. And one of the most prominent deadly sins that human beings are tainted by is greed. Crony, corporate, consumerist greed. And if we're gonna talk about greed, Wall Street is the place where all the greed is centralized. All of these brokers and investors manipulating the market to suit their need and screwing the working class to make $10 billion a month, which pisses them off because it's only $2 million less than what they made last month. The Martin Scorsese film Wolf of Wall Street is referenced a ridiculous amount at this point. It's already a terrifying look towards the inner workings of the stockbroker industry, and the lifestyle of sex, money, and drugs to the point of dependency are over-glorified to the point of redundancy. Funnily enough, when people criticize Wolf of Wall Street or literally any Scorsese film for glorifying the life of crime, am I the only one who finds their over-glorified lifestyle to be boring? And I am a fan of his movies. I think a life of staying inside my house and watching more of his films is more exciting than getting in trouble with the police for being part of an organized crime, because that way I'd be too busy watching my back and not have enough time to play some more of that other simulator. I mean, I guess it sounds exciting in the 90s, but even me in 2013 wouldn't be faced with it. Lamborghinis are cool and all, but I prefer cars that are practical and can actually carry more people than me and my dog. Even a freaking Toyota Avanza would do it. It wouldn't pick up chicks, yes, but chicks who like me for my expensive cars or materialistic goods are only worth to be ditched down the streets to the pimps. I also don't see the appeal of smoking, drugs, and alcohol. Consume any of them however you like, but I won't take it if you offer me. I'm already addicted to the drugs of fictional content, the interactive, non-interactive, and also the ones in between. As for sex, I don't see the appeal of having intercourse with hookers or cheating against your significant other. I mean, Margot Robbie is nice and all, but I don't think I can stomach having super attractive models with the personality of Sharon Stone's character from Casino. The only thing that I can at least somewhat get is jerking off, especially to 8-foot-tall vampire with massive okay, I'll shut up now, but jerking off at least twice a day is a bit overkill to me. I mean, you can, but your shot would be as pathetic as blowing water through a hold-up toothpick. It's a lot more humiliating when your partner realizes that your massive shaft can only produce a dribble rather than a big splash. Okay, sorry, that's too graphic. Point is, if you're the kind of person who thinks that the best thing in life is having lots of sex, money, and drugs, I will immediately assume that you're a boring person with zero creativity. I'm sorry, but that's just me. But that brings me to the question, what would you do if you have lots of money? That is actually a very interesting question because it's quite representative of your character. A boring person would say that they want more sex, more money, and more drugs. A more interesting person would say that they want to build a giant statue of themselves in the middle of the ocean that is taller than the Burj Khalifa, with a carving of an erect pipe the size of a 747. Anything sounds more interesting than more sex, more money, more materials, and more drugs. I've seen the rich people who have all of those things and they're a lot more depressed than I am, and I'm already pretty depressed, so I'd rather not be like them, or in fact any of the glorified characters in Scorsese movies. So out of my desperation for more interesting answers than every crime film that I've ever seen ever, I went into Reddit to see what kind of answers that the Redditors would have when being asked of the all-important, what would you do if you have all the money in the world? Some of the answers are, well, how do I put this? Shamelessly paragon. Some want to put their money on research, some want to redistribute it to those who are less fortunate, some want to fund on education. There's so much paragon and good karma energy on the answers, it's starting to turn like a gathering of angels in the Sistine Chapel, being led by Oskar Schindler. And I'm not complaining, I'm all for those things, and saving the Jews by buying all of them from the Nazis is at least a more interesting way to spend your money than sex, materials, and drugs. I'm only taking their words for it though. Maybe when Redditors actually are given money, especially after their relentless beating down on Wall Street lately, they are going to resort on the more sex, money, materials, and drugs thing. One very particularly interesting answer is hiring a high-class girl, playing against her in video games, telling her how she sucks, knocks the controller out of her hand, and film it. Oh, the horrors of misogyny. It's still alive and well in this gaming landscape. How can people deal with this hypothetical situation against this random Reddit user? Let's accuse accuse Reddit of being misogynistic and blame it all on Gamergate. Let's pity on the victims of this harassment campaign, those poor rich investors and hedge funds of the planet. Ah, yes, in case you guys missed it, there was a big event on Reddit that has shook Wall Street into its core, and it has turned into an amazing topic of discussion that everyone, including you, epic gamers, should pay attention to, especially when it involves a dying business that will reward its employees on a TikTok competition with more extra work time during the pandemic. This video, or at least this section of the video, is just gonna go to the most basic rundown of the event through the perspective of some dumb YouTuber on the internet, and also as a companion piece so that I don't have to explain everything in my upcoming stream linked down below at Saturday 7 PM Eastern Time. And if you are from my stream in the future and you visited this video because I told you to, hi people of the future. I think most of you know what stocks are and how the trading works, but a lot of people seem to not understand what short selling means, which is something that a lot of these crony investors really like to do. But it's so risky, even Warren Buffett and his right-hand man wouldn't do it nowadays. Unlike trading stocks, where you rely on the stocks going up to gain profit, short selling is the reverse. You rely on the stocks going lower so that you gain profit. How so? Well, what you do with short selling is that you borrow the stocks and you sell those stocks to someone else. That someone else gave you the money to the stocks at that current price. The profit comes when the stock value drops. You pay for the same amount of stocks you borrowed but in a lower price and then give it to the clients who you gave it to. The profit is gained from the margin between the stocks in the past and the lower stocks in the future. Heck, if the company goes bankrupt, you don't even need to pay for anything. You pretty much save all the money that you got from that someone else. Or at least that's how I understand it. These are all research I did for a couple of hours, so apologies if I get the details wrong. Now, my visual example tells the story of someone borrowing one stock, but Wall Street, as I said before, is the central place for all the greed in the world. So these people aren't just borrowing one stock. They're borrowing millions of them. It's to the point where in GameStop's case, the investors are borrowing more stocks than there are actual available stocks. That's how absolutely greedy they are. Now, if you buy stocks, you would only lose the amount of money you spent on the stocks initially, and your profit is pretty much infinite, theoretically at least. If you short stocks, however, it's your loss that's pretty much infinite. If the person that you borrowed the stocks to actually gains profit from the rising of its value, you are responsible to pay their gains, and their gains are infinite. While regular investors rely on companies succeeding, the short seller investors rely on companies failing, some even to the point of bankruptcy. So you can see why a lot of people, especially companies, are not a fan of those kinds of investors. I mean, to be fair, GameStop is already not a well-liked business even on the gaming community, especially at one point suggesting that they are essential retail during the pandemic and many of their countless bad PR last year and previous years. So pretty much anyone can predict their loss and the decline of their values, including the investors. Anyone who decides to spend their money on this failing business is an idiot. Either that or they're absolute mad lads. Enter Wall Street Bets. This subreddit and its members, and actually a lot of people on social media in general, decide to put lots and lots of investment on GameStop before all of those crony hedge funds, as in the short selling investors, can take some profit off of the loss. This is an activity called short squeezing, which what happens when a stock or other assets jump sharply higher, forcing traders who had bet that its price would fall to buy it in order to forestall greater losses. And yeah, I learned about this last night, so I only know half of what it meant. To put it simply, the price is rising up and you better buy it soon or you'll suffer from even more losses than before. Why do people do this? Because they just want to see the world burn, specifically the world of the hedge funds, because they are really not having a good time with this. Now, if you are interested in learning about finance thanks to this entire hoopla, excellent. You really should, because it's genuinely going to save you in the long run. Even the most basic trade and accounting lessons would pretty much save you in the long run. I mean, I certainly learned a lot of lessons today as I'm doing my research for this video. Thank you, GameStop. Who knows? You might learn a thing or two about trading, tips and tricks, and how to get the best stocks and become the next billionaire. Going back to GameStop, the investors are absolutely unhappy about this entire event. Some even straight up cry on TV. Why? because the public has manipulated the market to their favor, and they can't do that. Only we can manipulate the market to our favor. And thus came the hit pieces, the social media screeching, trading apps not letting you to trade to protect customers, calling the Redditors all the bad names in the world, all the typical media smearing that we've seen way too many times before. It's a freaking chaos of epic proportions, and I cannot cover all of that in this video. Stay tuned on the rest of the details of this event in my next stream, APB number 4 Big Stonks edition, Saturday 7 PM Eastern Time. What a way to end January. So that's the end of this video. What would you do if you have loads of money? Personally, I'd invest in an anime studio where I tell people to make anime about tall women with big, giant, massive, honky wonky, boingy boingy badunkers, and then jail them for touching a little kid.